I always try to be as fair as possible, as impartial as possible, and try and give my best and most honest opinion that I can. And I think pretty much everyone at this point can tell that consoles are dying. And I think the greatest proof of this is the fact that Xbox and Sony are doing literally the exact opposite things because no one knows what they're supposed to do to stay relevant at this point. Xbox has decided to completely ditch exclusivity, and now they're gonna not sell you a console, they're gonna sell you a PC. Which sounds ridiculously stupid, and most people recognize it. But Sony obviously is not far behind with what they're gonna do with PlayStation. They have decided to do the complete opposite and double down on exclusivity and being a console. And honestly, it does seem like a smarter thing, but I have already thought about this a long time ago. And you see, the reason why this may seem smart, and this is I think the reason why Sony actually is doing it, because one thing that actually shocked me in the recent year and a half, I would like to say, is the actual proof of statistics that, and I know some people are not going to actually believe me because I have still trouble believing it myself, even I do, they can't be lying about this, is the fact that PlayStation has given numbers for their sales from companies that they own, and they have said PlayStation outsold Steam. Because they have this information. They know the sales, they know the numbers, and PlayStation, unlike Xbox, actually does report player numbers and sales time to time. Well, sometimes they don't exactly report the numbers, but they at least say, hey, this sold good on this, Xbox maybe sold more than they expected, you know. So, in essence, it seems like it's at least believable information. Now take it with a grain of salt because all of these companies are gonna lie to us the first moment that they see the opportunity to make a profit. But these numbers, I think they're real because otherwise this switch to we're gonna go back to exclusives and being a console thing would not make sense. Because I think that they have fallen for the worst thing that they can. Yes, okay. If honestly at this point, if Microsoft's and Xbox's choice to give up on consoles fully seems stupid, I think Sony's to concentrate on consoles is the worst choice because their statistics every time that they have reported, and there have been they have officially reported that there are bigger console sales on the PlayStation platform than on Steam, is for games that are officially failures. They did this for Ghost of Yotei, and they did this for Assassin's Creed Shadow, saying, oh, actually, Xbox sold less than these consoles. And you know why this is bad? Because Ghost of Yotei, and I love, by the way, that Ghost of Yotei is successful, Cope, when every time PlayStation does an interview or talks about it, their examples of good PlayStation successful games is Ghost of Tsushima, not Ghost of Yotei, for some odd reason. Oh, geez, why would that ever be the thing, right? But I think it's hilarious because their examples of when PlayStation actually outsold Steam are games that they themselves have come out and officially called failures. Exactly Assassin's Creed Shadows. I mean, all of us predicted it's going to be a failure. And it was. They officially said that it undersold to their expectancies. Shocking, I know. The black dude butchering his way through ancient Japan did not sell well. Who would have thought? Maybe he needed to blacken more than just a Nobunaga bloodline. Maybe that would have sold extra copies. And then Ghost of Yotei, which we also predicted was a failure. And they came out and said this. And I think that this is pretty much the poison fruit that they're consuming in making this decision. Because there are failures, there are official failures that have outsold Steam. And this is why they're thinking maybe we can actually move away from become exclusive again because we are outselling Steam. And that shouldn't happen. And they're just ignoring the fact that all these statistics are for games that are literal failures. I think Sony could be in a much worse position than Xbox, honestly, because of it. It's kind of wild.
If there's one thing that's becoming really apparent about the difference between PlayStation and Xbox, is that they're going to approach the future in completely polar opposite ways. With Xbox being one to open their games and their platform to as many devices as possible, and PlayStation sticking to more traditional console
But didn't actually Asha Sharma say, "Oh, we're gonna make exclusives exclusive again"? Man, that didn't last even 2 days.
models of basically releasing exclusives so that people can only play their games on the device that they release. And nothing further spotlights that than this recent report from Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, who heard from sources that Sony's apparently
Did I actually just summarize this video in 5? I haven't watched it, but I have. I mean, we're already starting to. He's covering everything I just speculated about. Did I just summarize the video on accident?
planning to pull back from PlayStation games being released on PC. They're going back to full-on exclusives for PlayStation. Now, that's not to say that every single PlayStation published title will be exclusive to PlayStation 5. If it is an online game, a live service, the kind of game that requires as many players as humanly possible, for games like Marathon and Marvel Tokon, those kinds of titles will still be multi-platform, or at the very least, come to both PlayStation and PC.
Marathon, eh? They're gonna give Marathon. Wow.
But when it comes to single player,
This is the same as South of Midnight coming to PlayStation, and now they have done a massive deal about this. Dude, that thing didn't even sell 20,000 copies. Like, come on.
titles such as last year's samurai hit Ghost of Yotei and the upcoming action game Seros, those will remain exclusive to PlayStation 5. And this was such a hard pivot that apparently Ghost of Yotei was actually close to being finished for the PC, only for plans surrounding that to be completely ditched. Who knows, maybe Sony and PlayStation will allow them to go back to that if plans change down the line. But right now, apparently, all the development time and resources poured into that Ghost of
I'm sorry, isn't Ghost of Yotei already out on PC? What the hell? Oh, wait, it's not! Right, it's not. I forgot about that.
Yotei PC port that was near completion will all go to waste. Now, some upcoming PlayStation games that are getting PC ports did manage to slip through the cracks. So, for example, Death Stranding 2 and Kena, Scars of Cosmora, are all seeing a PC release this year. But the difference with those two games is that those are second-party titles, in that while they were
Kena Scars of Cosmora, I think I remember it from the event. I think that actually looked pretty decent. If that's the one I'm thinking about.
published by
At least it didn't look abysmal slop just from 5 seconds of looking at it, which is honestly for the modern gaming landscape pretty good. Pretty sadly good, huh?
PlayStation and had PlayStation's aid. Those are development studios who are not owned by PlayStation, and so maybe they'll have more freedom to decide whether their games will come to PC after certain limited exclusivity time on PlayStation. But yeah, I imagine that upcoming highly anticipated PlayStation titles such as Wolverine, as well as, Intergalactic from Naughty Dog, both of those will likely be exclusive to PlayStation 5.
Oh, I'm sure Intergalactic is gonna be a smash hit.
Won't see a PC version if these recent change in plans stick. Though Bloomberg emphasizes right here that things could change in the future, things aren't predictable in the video game industry, and Sony's plans are constantly shifting. Now, I think for many, this came as a surprise because initially it seemed like this was all very beneficial for Sony and PlayStation, with reports that their PC ports were actually selling really well. But it seemed as though that was only once upon a time because, according to Bloomberg, based on what sources have relayed to this news outlet, recent PlayStation games have not sold well on PC. Apparently, what extra boost in
Yeah, this is what we heard from Shadows.
sales for a game might happen on PC is not good enough to offset the fact that people no longer have to buy a PlayStation. They can just wait things out and wait for the PC port of a PlayStation release title. And what that does is damage the ability for PlayStation as a console to be able to sell. Or as Bloomberg
I honestly think this strategy would work if they were like Nintendo with Pokemon, but they're not, so Godspeed, I guess.
puts it right here, there are concerns internally from a faction within PlayStation that releasing
Now, granted, to be honest, obviously Xbox is covering one half of the future of consoles, and PlayStation is covering the other half, and both of them look bad. So it doesn't honestly matter what they do. I think it's I think it's a race to the bottom at this point.
Games on PC risks damaging the console's brand and will hurt sales of the PlayStation 5 and its successors. By releasing their games on PC just a couple months to a year down the line, they're giving the PC platform more power. It's diminishing PlayStation as a brand because it is no longer necessary. If you really want to play a PlayStation game, you can technically wait and play it on a device that is more universal, such as a personal computer. It seemed as though initially the games are selling well enough where that trade-off was worth it, but with recent PC releases of PlayStation games not having sold as well as Sony and PlayStation would have liked, that trade-off...
Now, granted, their recent games have been shit, so there you kind of go.
Suddenly not becoming as worth it as it used to be. And I mean, Sony releasing their PlayStation games on PC has been going on for a while, with them starting this back in 2020 when they pivoted and began bringing games to personal computers, specifically using the Steam platform. And worth noting is that anyone who sells games on Steam have to give away 30% of that revenue to Steam.
Daddy Gaben needs his yacht, and I fully support him.
And that cut does diminish for Steam if a game reaches certain thresholds in terms of units sold or how much money it's made overall. But yeah, the advantage of Sony releasing their games exclusively...
Oh, and by the way, the biggest... No one talks about this. I forget to talk about this, but Steam also gets a cut of your microtransactions. Yes.
On PlayStation isn't just better for selling PlayStation consoles and for keeping their games in one ecosystem and giving their brand power. Financially speaking, when their games are sold on PlayStation...
I think the worst way that you can look at this situation, the most doomer way that you can interpret this, is that PlayStation knows it's failing, and it thinks that its failure can be minimized by going away from Steam and, you know, forcing a couple of people extra to buy their console and play it on console. That the amount of sales that they miss out on Steam are gonna all in all be extinguished or surpassed by just by the extra sales of the console plus the game plus the potential of other games being sold. Now, granted, that does make actual sense, but you need to understand that's a very doomer approach to this. This approach, I mean, it seems valid, right? It seems okay. It seems legit, but it can't be legit because this is literally the approach of, oh, we're fucking dead. And obviously, PlayStation is not gonna ever think like that. They're fighting to the last. They're not trying to fight a losing battle per se. Unless their CEO is trying to just get their yearly bonus. In that case, everything's always a different type of scenario, okay? But does it seem like that? Nah. I actually don't know a lot about PlayStation's CEO, though, so maybe it is that case. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about the CEO. Who even fucking is it? At this point, I honestly have to wonder. So, I don't think this is the case, because this would be too much of an open admission that PlayStation is dying. And they're never gonna do that, obviously. Even Xbox is still yelling from the rooftops, yo, Xbox gaming is doing fine, Chad. So, you know that PlayStation's not gonna do it. But, I mean, the situation is as crazy and interesting as honestly it can be. This is... I mean, we're kind of looking at the complete destruction of consoles at this point. They're desperate, they don't know what to do, they don't know what tactic to use, and they're kind of just, effectively at this point, they're just gambling it away. Because they don't know what's gonna work. Maybe both sides truly believe that their approach is gonna work, but if that's true, then there can only be one winner. And that means the other one is gonna get absolutely shafted. Now, granted, I think the console war is probably gonna come to the conclusion when the next generation hits in general, because that's gonna be the real deal. It doesn't matter what's currently happening, it matters how many units are gonna be sold for the next generation of consoles. You know, and who wins off of GTA 6 at the end, and stuff like that. It has to be Xbox, right? They already made the deal. Or maybe I'm just tweaking. In any case, No matter what we fantasize, no matter what relativistic ideas we pick out, it's bad. It's really bad for consoles. Anyway, that was everyone's favorite, a younger Yair. Have a nice day. Bye.